Hello, everybody. My name is Ron, and welcome back to Just a Little Guy, a podcast in which I collaborate with some of my favorite folks from all around the world to whip up a brand new batch of beasties for all your creative needs. Just wanted to take a moment here at the beginning to say thank you very much for all of the patience that you all have shown in the time that I've been away. Especially the folks on Patreon who continue to support throughout, again, like a long absence. Your support has been so tremendous. Thank you. It's been kind of tough these last few months. There's been a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that's been kind of difficult. There's been a lot of stuff in my professional life that has just been really taxing. So all the patience and all the words of encouragement, these since November. Oh my God, it's almost April. That's quite a while. But all the words of encouragement and support over the last few months have been really appreciated. I'm really grateful for everybody who stopped by What's Left of Us, which is the D&D stream that I do on the last Friday of every month. I'm really grateful for everybody who stopped by there and voiced their words of support during that time. Yeah, I'm kind of rambling now, so I know if you've been listening to the show for a while, I'm a bit of a rambler, but we are getting back into the show. Hopefully going to be producing some more episodes in the very near future. I do have a bit of a queue starting to build up, so we should have some more content out shortly. And we're gonna kick off our new kind of almost season by welcoming our guest, who is a filmmaker, model, actress, writer, activist. She does so much stuff, and it's all really cool. You should go and check out her stuff. I actually just did a couple of voiceover things for her video, The Fascism of Common Sense. This is Marceline Birkholz. Welcome to the show, Marceline. How are you today?
Hello there. It's going good. How are you?
I am doing very well, thank you. It's been quite a day. In fact, very sleep deprived. So, but that's
Do you know
okay.
what?
We're here.
I'm very sleep deprived as well. So
Okay.
solidarity.
Hell yeah. No sleep till ever, actually.
Excellent. I feel like actually being sleep deprived will kind of aid in our storytelling today, because
Oh
we're
yeah.
talking about monsters, so it can just become more unhinged and yeah.
For sure. It can go all sorts of different places. So, really quick, so I understand that you are an author, if you would like to pronounce it in such a funny way, and that you like to write a lot of like cosmic horror kind of stories. What is something that drew you to that genre, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, firstly, I'm a wannabe author. I feel like author is a word that's saved for people who have published work. I do have published work, but not in the cosmic horror genre, not in anything fictional. I used to do like some journalism back in the day, but nothing I have written in the fantasy like world is published yet. So I would like to be an author, but I do write cosmic horror stories. Um, I I love just kind of like everything about cosmic horror. I I feel like what really latched like what got me very into it is this book called She Walks in Shadow, which is a collection of kind of like Lovecraftian styled stories, but through a slightly more modern lens and with a lot more like feminine energy interwoven, and also more kind of like just more diversity overall. Um,
Yeah.
and I can hear Tucker Carlson disparaging it for being woke nonsense. But in this case, I definitely think the diversity really adds so much to these different stories. And I feel like what was interesting to me, because in Lovecraft stories, I feel like a lot of the like cosmic horror elements are very kind of like the other is very much the villain, whereas in She Walks in Shadows, the other is like you root for the other, like even if the other is a monster and something evil, you're on their side. um And I think that's the side of cosmic horror that really excites me, is that it takes a lot of angst about the other, and many of us have lived an experience of being othered in various different ways, and it actually puts empowerment into that experience. And it's like, yeah, I'm a monster, and I'm like using my monstrosity to get justice for people or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely. I think that's a really like overarching kind of thing, especially in the LGBTQ community, is
mm-hmm.
like it's kind of been, covered to death, but like, the relation that a lot of LGBTQ people feel to like the villains, because so many of them are like queer coded and stuff like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's, yeah. So I get that
100%.
completely. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but I think that's really cool. And I didn't know that such a thing like existed, I guess. Anytime I
Mm-hmm.
think of, cosmic horror, obviously, everybody goes to Lovecraft like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And he's obviously not a very not a big fan of the diversity. He would have been on Tucker Carlson's show being like,
Right.
being like, I can't believe they've destroyed the genre that I worked so hard to construct.
Literally. You know, I actually have not read that much of Lovecraft, like almost embarrassingly, but I was talking with a friend who was reading a bunch of Lovecraft recently about like how on the nose some of the racism is. Like
Yeah.
the most evil thing here is that like this like other type of blood has polluted this white guy, you know, and so yeah, unfortunately that really is what, and that is probably why a lot of, you know, kind of minorities do latch on to cosmic horror, because we actually vibe with the other in this case. But
Yeah.
She Walks in Shadows really subverts that whole thing in a cool way.
Absolutely. I'm gonna add that to my read list so I can go check it out at some point.
Highly
Um,
recommend.
so a lot of cosmic horror kind of revolves around, well, okay. So the stereotype of cosmic horror, I guess, kind of revolves around, like, giant octopod people or something to that effect. Um, Today, to come up with the first name for our monster, I consulted the Monstermatic 5000, which is a thing on this show. Don't worry about it. And the first thing that it spit out kind of reminded me of something with 8 limbs as well. And the name that it came out with is the Webbler. So I'm
Ooh.
curious. Yeah. So I'm curious, what do you think something called the Webbler would look like? What kind of physical traits would it have?
I mean, it feels so obvious to go
Mm.
down an arachnid route with this, but it feels very arachnid,
Yeah.
obviously, in the name and everything. I mean, the first thing I thought about was Shelob. Shelob, is that her name in Lord of the Rings? The
Uh,
evil spider lady. Um,
I'm going to say it is. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to say yes.
okay. I'm pretty sure it's Shelob, and Shelob is a great example of cosmic horror, I feel, because I hope there aren't too many like diehard Lord of the Rings lore fans. I mean, I hope there is, because I love you and I want to be you, but I myself, my lore is not going to be totally accurate here. But she has a really interesting story. She like, I'm gonna get this wrong, but she kind of like she has some sort of journey around like vying for power and being like sort of betrayed by Melkor, or one of these kind of like the main villains in the like Silmarillion, like the wider kind of universe. And all you see of her is you see this like big evil monstrous spider in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but she's like so much more than that. Like she wasn't always a spider. She's just like kind of the spirit that's trying to like eat everything and devour everything. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I butchered the lore on that, but so that's immediately what I think of when I think of the Webbler. And yeah, I don't know, what was the question again?
No, that was pretty much it. It was like, what do you think of immediately when you think of the Webbler? And it makes sense that it would be like a giant, like essentially like spider kind of creature, I'd say, because then you
Mm-hmm.
gotta worry about them. Like they're called the Webbler for a reason, obviously. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna like sling webs or something to that effect. But like, that makes a lot of sense. And like, I didn't really know that much about the lore of this character from Lord of the Rings because I also don't read. I have not read like, well, I don't know if you've read Lord of the Rings. I have not read Lord of the Rings. I've watched the movies with my fiance, but that was like a decade ago now, and I
Mhm.
do not have that kind of a long term memory. So, um,
I have not read the trilogy. I've read the first book, but to be fair, all of the Shelob lore I believe is in the Silmarillion or something to that extent.
oh, the Silmarillion.
Um,
That's fair.
yeah, which I also have not read, and I'm not going to read the Silmarillion. I
Nobody's read the
love Lord of the
Silmarillion. I.
Rings. Yeah.
That's what Reddit told me in 2010, and they were never wrong back then.
Very true. Reddit is never wrong. The
No.
most reliable source of
Mm.
knowledge that exists. Have you seen Wheel of Time?
No,
That's what
I've
it's
heard
called.
about it though. That's the Lord of the Rings
Okay.
show, right?
It's not Lord of the Rings. But it feels a bit like Lord of the Rings.
Mm.
It's also a kind of novel series, very long series of books, I think, and they have an Amazon show. I haven't read the books, but I've watched the show, and they also have this like evil, I guess, kind of like spirit demon person who like catches people in magical webs. So they don't have eight legs, but I also they were the second place my brain went to was this like person who uses magic to like catch people into webs. They're very arachnid like in their mannerisms, but they are humanoid.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen that. For somebody who's like, I love popular culture, I don't get to see a lot of it. So I just kind of absorb whatever I hear like through the internet. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting. That's why all the people I follow on YouTube are video essayists.
Yeah, video
uh,
essayists are the best. I'm not biased at all, but
no, not at all. I mean, there's a reason that they're almost exclusively all the guests that I've had on this show. So,
Mhm. I love that.
um,
That is great.
um, but yeah, so I was not aware that was like a thing either, but it could be like a almost like a class if we were to like D&Dify it as well. It could be like, you got your warlocks, you got your clerics, you got your webblers, just
Hmm.
for the heck of it. Um
I love that idea. I would play
yeah.
Webbler.
Yeah, of course. I mean, who wouldn't want to learn how to like shoot webs out of like wherever, I guess.
Hmm.
You just you do the powerful the hellish rebuke, and instead of fire, it's a flaming net comes out of your mouth. Yeah, why not?
I
Um
mean, my favorite class to play as in D&D is like a druid rogue, and
mm,
I mostly just do druid just so I can turn into a giant spider.
hell yeah.
Um, I just love it. It's great.
Is there any other reason to play druid other than to just turn into a giant animal?
I feel like
I
the
don't know it
druid
if there is.
cliche. Yeah, I feel like the druid cliche is the giant bear thing, which like also very cool, and I also do that sometimes. But I just think the giant spider doesn't get enough like spotlight.
Yeah, it's way more interesting if you do like different animals than just like this one was in Baldur's Gate, so therefore that has to be
Right,
this. Yeah. Uh,
literally.
yeah. So we got the web lure. It's like an arachnid kind of thing. It shoots magical webs. It could be just like a person. Doesn't necessarily have to be arachnid. Maybe it can have like a queen kind of thing that's like an arachnid more like, and then like the underlings are like more humanoid. I don't know how that would work, but
I
this is
think
monsters
because
logic.
we're I think because we're kind of like, I mean, obviously, like my angle here is very cosmic horror, but I think I do want her to be a shapeshifter.
Oh
I
yeah.
definitely want a kind of like Shelob can take a sort of humanoid form, and I'm also thinking of. I'm sorry, I'm going on so many nerdy tangents here, but
It's
do you know
okay.
Dragon Age at all?
I'm vaguely familiar. I started the first game. I
Okay.
got probably like a third through it, but yeah.
Okay. Well, Morrigan in Dragon Age also transforms into a giant spider. So I like this kind of like can be a sort of like sexy woman maybe as like a humanoid, but then just like with the snap of a fingers is this like horrible monster who will gobble you
Yeah,
up in its mouth.
absolutely. So one of the recurring things in this show is articular hairs. Are you familiar with that concept?
I am not. No.
Okay. So there are a bunch of like members of the insect species, family, whatever, I don't know, that have these hairs that like get really rigid as like a defense mechanism, and they can shoot them out like as basically like pins and stuff like that. Um, yeah, and they just like they stab and they do the
Very
stabbing.
cool.
And so I was thinking like, what if we did something like that? Because I don't know, it's just like a trope of the show at this point. Or something similar to that. Maybe like so you know how like the beholders have like the eyeballs that come out their heads.
Mm-hmm.
What if we got like I don't know, like spider legs or something that come out of their heads, or I don't know. I'm kind of just like throwing spaghetti at the wall here. The Webbler was kind of a horrible name.
I think it's a great name. I'm into her. No,
Yeah.
I like legs everywhere. I like legs in unexpected places. That's fun because I feel like it gets a little bit like, as much as I love the like Sheila Morgan thing, it is kind of a bit of a trope now, and it's easy to say the legs all come out around the torso and around where legs and arms are. But yeah, it's definitely unique and fun and different to be like head legs, neck
Yeah.
legs.
Like perhaps if you were to sever a limb, then it grows legs and it becomes its own thing eventually, you know,
Yes.
like from the thing.
I like that. That's great.
What kind of what kind of motivations do we think that the Webbler would have? Does it just live because it wants to build webs? Like is it essentially a Minecraft builder but with webs, or
I feel like the stereotype with spiders and like the Shelob thing is that they just want to eat and eat and eat. So I don't want to go that direction with it. I like there's this spider who lives in my kitchen, and it just works so hard. It's kind of ironic because I have a what's called a spider plant, and that's literally the name of the plant, and it's built its web in the spider plant, which is like, obviously it doesn't know that it's the spider plant, but it is kind of a wonderful coincidence. It has
yeah.
this huge web, and it catches so many bugs, like so many bugs. So I like the idea of like the the Webbler as like a defender. Like maybe it thinks that it's like a good guy, and it's like putting down its webs in defense of a space to catch a certain type of creature, or maybe that's just kind of like what it was programmed to do, or what it was made to do, or just like, I don't know, like something to that extent. And so it feels like, because I love a kind of like monster or villain who like has good intentions even if they're doing terrible things. Um, so yeah, maybe the Webbler just is like, I'm putting my webs down to like help catch the baddies, and it's like, but maybe it's catching everyone, and that's a
But it's
problem.
they're just like, well, they're people, obviously they're bad, duh.
Right.
That's the whole commentary with this character is like people are evil. That hasn't been done
Yeah.
before.
Never, not once. I've been watching a lot of Castlevania recently,
Oh
and
yeah.
then also watched some of the Miyazaki Studio Ghibli films, and they both have these kind of like, well, more so Castlevania, but they both have this kind of like, technology's bad, like nature's good, humans are bad type of like messages, particularly in Castlevania, where they're like, we have to genocide all humans because they're bad. And
Yeah.
so this is definitely something that's in my head right now.
So where do we think that a Webbler would live?
I think obviously spiders like warm, damp spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it needs to have prey. So it's definitely going to be kind of an urban space, I think, somewhere where there is lots of people, and warmth, and kind of like shelter that it can crawl into.
Do we think that it might like stay down in like sewers and stuff as well? Like,
Yes.
yeah, it could be
Sewers is really
sewers.
good because it drags people, it drags its victims into the sewers, like um, and sewers are damp. Sewers, I think, make a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they can be, similar to chuds, so that then, people will be like, "Oh, obviously it's whatever the humanistic underground dweller things from the '80s movie with Daniel Stern."
I have not seen that. Now I'm missing a
Oh,
reference.
you don't
We're
have
just going to
to.
like be dodging references at each other the whole
Like
episode.
two ships in the night.
Yeah.
um, yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. But I also think it makes sense that they would like maybe be hiding out in like abandoned apartments or
Mhm.
maybe like the hotel boiler room.
Mhm.
Places where there would be people like at all times. Um, do they do anything other than like magical webs? Do they have any other powers? Maybe.
Well, I immediately think of Venom, which makes a lot of sense. I feel like I'm just kind of like shamelessly adopting all of the arachnid cliches. What are some like unusual arachnids? I'm trying to think if I can depart from this.
I feel like, well, okay, this isn't necessarily arachnids, but I'm thinking about those birds from that Blue Planet um documentary, whatever it was, the ones that would like unfurl like their feathers and like do this weird like dance. You seen this video? It was like really
I
popular
have
like 10 years
not.
ago. Okay, I might have to look it up. That's okay. Um again, two ships in the night.
Literally.
Um um but it's like
Oh, you know what? I think I have seen these somewhere, and they
this was
just do their
also
super
like
weird dance.
a meme for the longest time.
Because it's like a dating
Um,
thing, right?
yeah, yeah. So like they'll put
Oh,
up
I
their
love
feathers
these
and like
guys.
yeah,
They're so
and
funky.
like
I
I've
do
I've never
really
seen anything
like
like that.
I do really like the trope of like the monster who has like maybe like a fake beautiful face. Like maybe there's like one part of the spider that looks like the most beautiful woman, but it's just like sort of painted, on its butt or something, and you see that from the like grate in the sewer. I don't know, this sounds really silly,
Yeah.
but then like
No,
and
it's
that kind
yeah.
of like draws it in, and then all of a sudden you see the teeth and you see the I'm just gonna drop another reference on you, but do you know League of Legends at all?
I'm vaguely familiar with that one. I've at least played the auto
Okay.
chess game.
Okay, well, it is the most toxic video game of all time. But there's a champion in it who has like they're like this horrific monster with teeth, but like at the top of the body of the monster is like what looks like the head of a beautiful woman, and so it'll kind of like draw people in with this very fake, facade of like, oh, I'm totally a humanoid, but it's not even a head at all, and it's just and its mouth is like its torso, and it's just like,
Oh, so it like
yeah,
does a thing where it like leans back and there's teeth
yeah,
and yeah,
mm-hmm,
yeah. No, I
yeah,
love that kind of stuff. There's this
it's
wrestler
great.
called Finn Balor who does this thing where he's called like the Demon King or something to that effect. And
Ooh,
he does the same kind of thing. He just paints his whole face like and like upper chest and stuff like that. So he's got like teeth on his neck and it's just it's awesome. Um
I love
so
that.
yeah, I'm totally here for that kind of like camouflage thing.
Yeah, it's
Um
sick.
Now you said fake face on the butt. So I'm not totally sure how that would work, but I appreciate the uniqueness there. So
I'm thinking of like the torso of a spider. They're like
yeah,
that's where they have the most
that's where the
room
web
to like
is, right?
paint and put like loads of color. Um, but that was just kind of me being a bit silly, I think. But
Yeah.
I guess like because the butt of a spider is so huge that like you'd
Yeah.
actually have a lot of space to create an image there. But
I'm
I
digging
don't
it.
know.
I
I
think
still
that's unique.
it's like if it shapeshifts, does it really need to have like a second kind of look as well? I don't know,
Well,
but
I mean, it might be that if it does shapeshift, like maybe it's one of those things where it takes up so much energy,
mm-hmm,
that it kind of it needs to do something else after a while. So perhaps if it's like hasn't eaten in a while, it can't shapeshift, and then you do the
mm.
fake painting on the butt or something to that effect, and yeah, it just lures people that way. Maybe that's why it's like hanging out in the sewer grate, like, hey, come on down here. We got beautiful ladies. Don't worry about the
Yeah.
fact that I'm painted on a thorax. Nothing horrific
Literally.
down here.
No, not at all. No, I like
Yeah.
that a lot. It's like very reminiscent of the like that thing where if you use the power too much, you get stuck in the form. But this is, I guess, kind of like the opposite of that. Well, it's like the vampire thing where they have to like eat, and if they don't feed, they become more and more monstrous. Like in order to
Yeah.
maintain the humanness, they have to feed. I like that.
Yeah. No, I think
Great.
that's I
Very
like that trope
cosmic
as
horror.
well. Yeah, very very weird. Okay. Do we need to add anything else to the Webbler?
Do you know? I'm pretty happy. I
All
think,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's pretty good. Again, I think I did kind of like paint us into a corner by referencing webs immediately and not expecting it to go down like spider path, but like, you know what? We still turned it into something unique. So that's the thing
Yeah,
that
I
matters.
really wanted to not take the bait, but I couldn't think of anything else.
And that's the whole point of the monster is like it's one of those temptation monsters where it's like, look over
Right,
here.
right.
Mm,
One thing that I did come across, obviously we've created here, we won't be retconning all of this, but I did think of I think they're called bolas. The thing with
hmm.
they have little like um it's like a weapon where you have some string connected to rocks or like spheres, and
Yeah.
you kind of twirl it a bunch, and then you throw it, and it sort of like grabs someone in a net.
Right.
And I do think that could have been another direction we could have gone in.
I'm
Some sort
totally
of
okay with
like,
throwing that in there.
yeah,
Like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. That's also unique. Could also make it a thing where, um, perhaps it is able to, maybe it converts all of the people that it brings down into the sewers into like minions kind of thing.
yes,
And then yeah, hands out like these bolas to all of them as well, so that they can help, bring more, recruit more followers. Let's say.
perfect.
So we kind of talked a little bit about D&D and just tabletop games in general. How often, like, do you play a lot of like tabletop games? And if so, do you prefer to be like a character, or do you prefer to do like the DMing role?
I have played a lot of campaigns and a lot of tabletop games. It has been a little bit like a hot second, but that's kind of just coincidental, like not out of lack of desire or loss of interest for sure. I've played a lot of classical D&D. I've played a couple of homebrew kind of universes within the like 5th edition format. And I've also played, I think it's called Eclipse Phase. It's like a sci-fi tabletop RPG. And what else have I done? I've done, that might be it actually. I think I've just done D&D, some homebrew, and some Eclipse Phase, which was very cool. I have
Interesting.
also DM'd the greatest role playing game of all time, which was my very own homemade Desperate Housewives D&D,
What?
and I'm very proud of that. It was a project of love, and I worked very hard on it, and it was exceedingly silly, as you can imagine. But it operated within like I don't know, it was fairly grounded. You had classes and stats and everything, and so to answer your question, I do tend to prefer being a player, but I did DM for my Desperate Housewives campaign, and I loved DMing for that, and I had a really fun time. So yeah,
Very cool. Very cool.
thanks.
Okay, I will say this is the first like reference I think that we've both like hit on, is that like I have seen Desperate Housewives.
Yes,
It was not necessarily
we got one.
100% willingly, but goddamn, when that show got going, I was like, "Oh, I'm invested now." I did not
Yeah.
expect this. I want to know what's happening next. What do you mean that there's a tornado coming? No, not the old
Right.
lady. She's my favorite one.
Literally, I had a similar journey with it. I did not want to watch it at first. I was introduced to it by a friend, and I was like very resistant. I was like, this is
Mm.
not my cup of tea. But then I did get very into it as well. And I actually made the campaign partly as a gift to him because he was such a big fan of it. But I was really into it too. I just was sort of pretending I wasn't.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah.
I know what that's like. But
Hmm.
that's cool. That's really cool. What was your favorite type of class to play or character or anything like that? Who was your favorite character? I guess is a better question that you've played.
Sure. Well, assuming this makes the edit, I've already spoken a bit about loving the rogue druid combination class. Um, I I tend to play a lot of like yeah, just roguish classes in general. But I just can't. What I can't stand in any kind of game, tabletop or video game or anything is like feeling pigeonholed. Like I can't play just a rogue. I can't play just a fighter or just a mage. That's just not what I enjoy. Like I just feel way too drawn to multiple different types of things. But usually what I need some kind of stealth element and I need some kind of spell casting element. And annoyingly, a lot of games don't let you do both. But D&D is one of those games that lets you do both. So usually I'll either be like a bard, like maybe a bard warlock, bard sorcerer, or like a rogue druid, rogue wizard even. And I'm playing through Baldur's Gate right now, Baldur's Gate 3, and loving it. It's great. But so far I've done a rogue druid and I've done a rogue wizard, and I love it. I love it so much.
That's awesome. I've only played a bard so far in that game,
Mm-hmm.
but I have become a notorious multi-classer with my D&D groups. I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I want to do a cleric, but also he's going to be a barbarian. And they're like, what do you mean?
Yes.
Like,
Yes. I love that so much.
yeah. I'm like, he's going to hurt with one hand and heal with the other, just like Bray Wyatt.
Yes. That's a
uh,
wonderful concept.
yeah.
Very good.
He's also a pirate because you can't get random enough with me. I put a number generator on and I'm like, yep, that sounds like his background. Uh-huh. Okay. That's really cool though. I really like the idea of a Desperate Housewives version of like D&D or something to that effect. You'll need to like tell me a little bit more about that later because like that sounds incredible.
Happily.
This is going to kind of be more like another like interview question, kind of hybrid thing, I guess. And feel free to reject this question if you like because it's whatever. But the prompt that I have, definitely from the Monstermatic 5000, is that we are going to build a monster around the most unusual object that you own. So, what is the most
Oh
unusual object that
wow.
you own? Again,
Well,
feel free to tell me that this one's not okay.
oh my gosh, no, I love the prompt, but it's very hard to answer. I feel like I own some very unusual objects. Um, I'm like just looking around my room for inspiration, and there's already just so many weird things. Like, I don't know, I have a parasol, I have random medieval weapons, I've got hair
Dang.
extensions and wigs. Um,
You can definitely
what's
build a
the
monster out of hair
weirdest?
extension and wigs.
Um,
Or maybe like one that you obtained in like the weirdest circumstances, like maybe one that has like a weird story behind it.
I did consider my blahage, my off-market blahage. Do you know what a blahage is?
I sure do. I've been on Twitter
Okay.
for a long time.
I have as
I see him.
for people watching and not listening to the podcast, I have an off-market blahage, which I had like um, early in my transition. So for anybody listening who doesn't know, blahages are a little bit of a thing for trans femme individuals. Its origins are weird, and that's not really what this podcast is about. So I won't go into it too much. But needless to say, I wanted to like go through this little ritual of kind of like welcoming myself into trans femininity, and so I was trying to find a blahage, but because they are so popular, I just could not find one anywhere, and it was very difficult to get one. So in the end, I ended up finding like a knockoff, which even has an IKEA like tag on it, but it is not from IKEA. um, and I love her very much. I don't know if that would really count as bizarre, but it is something that I thought about.
No, I mean it's off market things are kind of like strange in their own way. So like if you wanted to go with that, we could go with that. If you think of anything else, that's fine too. But I like that idea. I think that the blahage thing is like really cool. Um I was like looking them up because I was like, how does everybody have these? Like IKEAs are almost, well, they're nowhere around here. Um
Mm,
but Western New York, et cetera, et cetera. Um
mm.
and anytime I looked at IKEA, they were like completely sold out. So I yeah. Um
Yeah, the struggle is very real.
that's what I
I
hear.
think the only other thing I can think of that I own that would be considered weird is probably just like lots of throwing knives. Like most people don't really own throwing knives.
Most
Um,
people I don't think do, yeah.
so I feel like my bar for like what is weird is very like low.
All right.
um,
That's okay. We could do blahage and throwing knives. I think that's like a pretty good combination. Like,
excellent.
um, so, are what do you think of that then? Is that go along with
I
that,
think
or
I think we I think we should probably pick one. I think maybe trying to combine them both would be a little bit
that would
complicated.
kind of, yeah,
Um,
and plus it would then just be like a shark with throwing knives and
which
yeah,
is like wonderful but so cheesy. I would struggle to like turn it into something monstrous.
yeah. Well, I guess the off market nature of the blahage, unless there's like an interesting story behind like how you acquired the throwing knives, um, I
No, I
think.
just bought them.
Oh, you just bought them. I got you. So let's see, what could we say with an off market monster? Maybe this is something that
I immediately think of Mimikyu. Is that his name? The fake
Mimikyu.
Pikachu. I
The
forget his
first time
name.
I'm
I
hearing
don't know
about
anything
this.
about Pokemon.
Me either.
Okay. Okay, well, but there's a like there's this Pokemon who like tries to look like Pikachu, and it's like its whole gig is that it's basically trying to be Pikachu, but it's not, and it's really kind of sad. It's a very like forlorn, quite tragic Pokemon,
Oh.
and I love him. I don't know anything about Pokemon, but I just love this little guy because he's just got a sad little like his upper body is just like made to look like Pikachu, and it's just really quite tragic. 'Cause it's like you're not
Yeah.
Pikachu and you never will be. But um, that's
That
how I
is.
feel about my Blahage.
Oh, you're not Blahaj and you never will be, but you're good enough. um, no, that's a tragic backstory if ever there was one. You know, wanting to be
Yeah.
Pikachu and then you can't do it. Maybe it's a monster that somebody found out in the wild, and they basically appropriated it, turned it into the mascot for their like shipping company or like clothier or something like that. Maybe their restaurant chain, maybe like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of thing. And it became like resentful of it because people weren't scared of it or something like that. Maybe it like
Mm.
kind of depended on being a badass for its own confidence. But then everybody saw it as being
Yeah.
cutesy. I don't know.
No, I like that. I like the thought that maybe like the owners of this brand or this restaurant or whatever had kind of like created this image maybe based off of something else, that kind of thing where like there's a really famous celebrity and these parents have a child who looks kind of similar, so they're like, this is this person. This is, you know, Presley, and it's like, well, it doesn't really matter if that's true or not, and the kid just has to go along with it. It's just being kind of forced. So maybe this monster is kind of like, yeah, is being forced to kind of like look like or appear like something else, some other, maybe some famous monster, and it's like, or maybe it's like kind of a circus situation, like it's being kept in a cage, and the owners of the circus are saying, look, it's this monster, when it's clearly not that
Mm,
monster, but like maybe it just looks similar enough. And then
yeah.
maybe as it tries to kind of like maybe it does slowly take on the traits and like appearances of this of the monster that the people want it to look like, but um Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea because let's say you go from one town to the other and they say something in one town like come and see Bigfoot, we got him locked up, and they go and they see Bigfoot, and then like in the next town over they're like, well, now we got the Loch Ness monster, and
Yeah.
it's all like shaped like that, and then like over time it starts like taking these um parts of the monster and just like kind of absorbing it into itself. So like it'll be Bigfoot but with
Yeah.
flippers and like a long
Mm.
neck or something like that,
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot, and like maybe it has some kind of like not full shape shifting abilities, but just some like subtle abilities to kind of take on some of the properties of various other creatures and monsters, and so yeah, it just become just like its identity becomes so kind of fucked up that it like morphs and evolves into different things,
Yeah.
and then maybe it
Yeah.
just kind of slowly becomes more and more kind of like resentful of it being taken advantage of, and it breaks out and murders everybody at the
Causes
circus.
havoc. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then it does become a monster, and then it is its own, yeah, its
Gets its
journey
own
into
name.
monstrosity. Yeah, you know what Pikachu looks like, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, so when I say I don't know anything about Pokemon, I mean relatively speaking. If you ask me
Okay.
about the first 150, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I know them. But anything past that, I'm like, what the hell's
Okay,
that?
well, you should seriously look up Mimikyu, because I feel like it's just very like it has, you'll immediately see how it's just like has this tragic look. There's something so like forlorn about it. Yeah.
Wow, I really butchered the hell out of that spelling.
I sent it to you in the chat as well, I
Oh, you
think.
did? Oh wait,
I
I
may have
have
spelled
seen
it
this.
wrong actually.
No, I have seen
Yeah,
this
right?
before. Yeah, that guy. Wow,
That
that is
guy,
sad. That's
that's
a
what I'm
great basis
thinking
for a
of.
monster. Yeah. No, I could totally see that, like doing the same kind of thing that we described here with this off market, like monster that keeps changing itself. And maybe I think that you kind of said it, but maybe it's like shape shifting abilities. It can only do it so many times before it's like a
Mm-hmm.
permanent fixture to its identity.
Right.
And yeah, like you said, like eventually it has its own unique identity, but it's made up of like everything else. It's kind of a good metaphor um, for a couple different things, honestly. Um, it's a metaphor for folks, trying to fit in, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also, I had a thought and it just left. It right out my ear. It's gone. Um,
No, I
so
like what you're saying though. It makes me think of kind of like, I mean, obviously, there's so many instances in the human experience where we're trying to be something that we're not. Super on the nose, having me of all people talking about this, but just like, and as the more you kind of like perform and engage in the thing that you're supposed to be according to other people, you do start to become that thing, and there's obviously a tragedy in that, but kind of this inevitability, and not everybody can even have that option or that privilege to become the thing that they're supposed to be according to other people. But like, yeah, you start to kind of like you do start to sort of morph into that. um, I just was watching Howl's Moving Castle for the first time today,
hell
and the
yeah,
more it's so good, and the
yeah.
more Howl transforms into his like bird form, the more permanent those features become. I mean, supposedly in the end, obviously he's totally fine and not bird like at all. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
kind of like the idea is that yeah, every time he uses his bird form, he'll suddenly have more feathers, part of his body or whatever. Um, so this kind of like shape shifting esque creature, yeah, maybe it's has some scales and it has some feathers and it has some fangs, but like yeah, this long neck, just like all of these different things where it's been forced to be so many other things. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I
Damn, this
hate
has
the thought.
gone kind of deep.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of hate the thought of like long necked, like Bigfoot faced like thing, but
Yeah.
I think it's really cool at the same
really
time.
horrible.
Like imagine
Yeah.
you're like on the 7th floor and you look out and you see Bigfoot staring at you through the window. Yeah.
That would not be a good time.
No, I wouldn't think so, especially when he's resentful towards humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be
I
like, hey
this.
man, it wasn't me.
I didn't do it. Please don't throw me off the roof.
Literally.
Let's see. Okay, what else do we need to do with this guy? Do we think he has any special powers besides shapeshifting, or is like that, like I feel like that's enough because like you're
Yeah.
shapeshifting. That's fucking cool. I guess I can skip asking, do they have scales? The feathers, or are they fleshy? Because all of the above.
All of the above. It is kind of fun when the shape-shifting creature has like this little extra ability. But yeah, I'm struggling to think of something that would be really fit it. But
startling accuracy
know.
with throwing knives. There we go. We wrapped it all together.
Perfect. Oh my god. It could maybe have like a slight kind of soft telepathic ability, or I don't know, like because this creature is all about kind of conforming to the wishes of its oppressors essentially. Maybe it can also kind of like insert like soft wish fulfillments into the minds of people who look at it. I don't know, like that's kind of a weird thing to go down. But yeah, let's say the people who come and visit it suddenly kind of like hear things about like picture things that they wanted or wished for or whatever. Like it's essentially a bit of a reality warping creature. And its entire existence has been made to just be like, what do other people want from me? So maybe it has other ways to kind of project that onto people. And the scary part of that is maybe it can also make you feel safe. Like if it can like make you hallucinate things you want, maybe you feel like you're back home in a really safe place, and then it eats you up,
Yeah. Like maybe in its earlier form, it was more benevolent, I guess, or like it might be like maybe it did like those, like you said, soft wish fulfillment kind of things, like to endear itself to people. Like literally, if there was a child in the crowd like watching it and it was like thinking to itself, wow, I really like that stuffed animal, it would like kind of give it to them, or like at least give them the feeling that they had like that kind of thing at home, or something to that effect.
Right.
But after years and years of abuse, maybe that's just they use it now for more nefarious purposes. But maybe they still also use it for good, because like kind of like Frankenstein's monster. Maybe this one is more misunderstood, but I don't know. Is that too cliche?
It is a bit cliche, but I really like it. I like, because it's this creature, this poor creature we've created. It is a bit like Frankenstein's monster. It's very tragic and it has so much pain. So I think it can. I get the feeling like if this creature were to run into somebody else that it sense had gone through a lot of trauma or maybe been oppressed or taken advantage of, it would actually be really kind to those people and maybe like project reassurance telepathically. Like if it were to run into I don't know, yeah, maybe someone who was formerly enslaved themselves, it would be like, it's going to be okay for you, and kind of like project images of warmth, but like maybe it's just like ruthlessly murders everyone else, so maybe it's kind of has a soft spot for people that it can kind of connect with and empathize with.
Yeah. I like having some like redeeming qualities to monsters, so
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah. What should we name this character that we have made?
I've been dreading you asking that question because I really don't know. I immediately think of, just because we've gone down this path of wish fulfillment now, I'm kind of thinking of like the I feel like in some folklore, like you have the kind of fairy godmother. Like I'm thinking of like a dark twist on that, like the wish monster, or just something in that vein. Like I can picture some like old lady being like, be careful. Like, if you run into the witch monster, it may at first
Mm.
seem like it's giving you everything you've ever wanted, but if you give in, it'll eat you up.
Yeah, yeah.
But the wish monster's not good enough. I don't know. It needs to go a little bit
um,
grungier than
let's
that.
look up some words that maybe some synonymous with wishing,
Yeah.
because wish.com, that's not what I wanted. Um,
What a great analogy.
I
Wish.com is
know.
also in some ways a monster that will give you whatever you want.
Yes, at a very steep cost
Yeah,
in terms of shipping.
literally.
What is that word? Desiderate. I've never heard of that before.
Desiderate. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
desiderate. Feel a
interesting.
keen desire for something lacking or absent. I desiderate the resources of a family, is what the example sentence is. That's interesting.
It's a great word.
Yeah.
I guess you could be like the desiderator or something.
Desiderator. He's got the Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Literally. Um,
Don't listen to me if you want to live. Okay. Another one that came up was hankering, which I don't think that you would want to call the
no.
the hankering.
Not the
desiderator.
hankering.
Not the hankering.
Anything but the hankering.
I guess that could be like a good name though, like for if it was like more of a concept than a monster, which I guess in some ways it is, because this is almost it's not like it's like a shapeshifter and a genie at the same time, right? Sort of.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it doesn't actually give anybody their wishes. It just sort of like uses. Yeah, it's illusory.
Yeah.
Which it's like a genie. It's like a useless genie.
Oh, maybe the hallucinogen, but it's spelled DJINN at the end.
Yes, that could work well. Yeah. I feel like that captures the wish fulfillment side really well, but not the shapeshifty side as well. But that's what's
True.
difficult, is that it's like it's kind of it is sort of like both or neither.
Maybe like a morphing hallucinogen. But that's not really what it the mighty morphing hallucinogen. Oh no. It's not really what it does though. It's more like it is more like a mimic.
I did one of the things the first thing I thought, and I didn't even say it because it's just kind of the same as Mimikyu, but I did think of like the Mimicry.
There you go.
Because it is, I don't know, it is a cool name, even though I've only thought of it because of Mimikyu, but it's like that is what it does. It's Mimicry.
Yeah, I think I like that idea a lot better than any of the other ones.
Mimicry.
Yeah, Mimicry, because it's like it's got a tragic backstory for one.
Yeah.
And
I like that it has cry in it. Yeah, it definitely fits it well.
All right.
The other thing I thought of, and this is way more pretentious, and I don't think this is as good, but like I thought of like Mimesis, or the Mimesis monster, or just the Mimesis. And Mimesis is like an old philosophy term for like mimicking reality, essentially. So it's cool, but like way more pretentious.
I've never heard of that before, but that could be like maybe
Mimesis.
a scientific name, or
Yeah, I like that. It's technically originates as an art term to refer to when artists draw like very realistically, so they're trying to capture reality essentially. So I mean, it definitely works well for the monster because it is essentially trying to capture these different realities.
Yeah. Well, I like.
But
this
I like
guy.
Mimicry. Mimicry has a lot of like drama to it.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Like that's definitely when you go on to like when you go see something like put on a stage, like, and you hear it's like the Mimicry, then like you know you're in for something.
Right. 100%.
I like that. I like the Mimicry. Let's do that then. Okay. Do we need to add anything else in there? Is there anything else that like we've forgotten that you can think of?
No, I think I'm pretty happy.
All right, cool beans.
Yeah.
That's the Mimicry. So, as somebody who enjoys, I assume you enjoy writing horror anyway. As
Mm.
somebody who writes horror, what is effective in horror for you? What is scary to you?
I like horror that is high stakes, and I like horror that has narrative. I don't like horror that is just kind of maybe slightly pointlessly scary or pointlessly gory. Like, I want to know who my characters are, I want to care about them, I want them to have agency. I really liked like horror films I've really enjoyed. I mean, I loved the Babadook because it just like
Oh
I guess I
yeah,
like horror that like transcends its genre. Like it isn't just a horror. Like the Babadook was so much more than just a horror. It's also talking about family and these tensions and um, identity and all of this stuff and like I like that you're kind of wondering whether the Babadook is real throughout, even when you're scared shitless.
yeah.
Um, I love Jennifer's Body, which is a comedy horror. Um,
Huh.
I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't
Okay,
actually.
it absolutely bombed in the box office, and now it's become like an absolute like cult classic, and it's super popular, especially amongst like kind of younger queer audiences and stuff. It's just there are it's rarely very seriously scary. I mean, obviously it's a comedy horror, but it has it just does such a great job with like satire, and the villain is someone you empathize with. I love it. I just love to empathize with my monsters. I don't like having a monster that I'm unambiguously like just, well, you're scary and evil and I guess we have to defeat you. I want, and I felt this with the Babadook as well, like I want there to be some dimension there. I want to like know who you are, I want to care about you. And in Jennifer's Body you empathize massively with the monster. You care about her a lot. And you know she has to be defeated. You know the whole goal is to like survive her, and you know she's killing everyone and all of this stuff, but you feel really sorry for her and you kind of want her to win, even though that means everyone else you love dying too. So,
Yeah.
and that's what I like to write as well, is these really kind of complex storylines. I also really like horror as a tool for like I don't know how this will come across, but like when life has been made very difficult for you and you've been very intensely oppressed by the ruling class, if I may be political, I think that horror can be a really great avenue for like expressing angst and frustration with the, you know, kind of existing status and structure of the world. And I really like the ways horror can let you kind of take that out, you know, the like the slave murders, all of the slave masters, the you know, very oppressed female character had no agency, but now she's like you know, like suddenly has all these powers and she goes around murdering all the men who hurt her. You know, these kind of like justice horror, I guess, is something I
Yeah.
really like, which is something I feel is very like intermixed or like adjacent to cosmic horror as a genre. Um,
Yeah, I could see
Basically,
that.
I like this kind of very human horror, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good like avenue for like getting those emotions out there as well. And you know, like you said, kind of having that human element to it where you can sympathize with like the monsters, because like even though there's like a lot of stuff where it's like this is a monster, it's supposed to be scary, you know,
Mm,
but also it's more complicated than just, you know, wrecking the buildings and stuff like that. I
right.
think that it's yeah, I think it's a lot more interesting when it's something like that. Um,
Mm,
yeah, I
yeah.
had to hold
There's
back
this
so much from doing my Bobby Duke impression there when you brought up the
oh my
Babadook though.
god.
Like,
I don't know who that is.
oh, so I have referenced Thought Slime in pretty much every single episode of this show. um,
Okay.
and they have a channel called Scaredy Cats where they review horror movies,
Mm,
and they have this character called Bobby Duke, which is the Babadook that they came up with while they were high on marijuana edibles. And so he
Fantastic.
talks like this, and he's like, "I'm Bobby Duke, star of the channel."
Oh my god.
Got merchandise and all that kind of stuff. So,
That
yeah,
is
definitely.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm
And he's like, he's
obsessed with
making
the
an appearance and
ways.
everything.
Sorry, what?
Oh, I was gonna say he appears in every episode of like Scaredy
Oh,
Cats. So I was
that's
like,
so good.
I'd feel kind of shitty if like the one opportunity I got to like reference Bobby Duke on this podcast went by without. But anyway, yeah, the Babadook is
Gotta
like
do
a
it.
great film though. Yeah, and
It's excellent.
I have not seen Jennifer's Body, but like I also heard that it was really like solid and gained a pretty big cult following a couple years ago. So I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's very good. I also love how the Babadook has inadvertently become a gay icon, and even though that really has nothing to do with the actual film, I think it's really fun the way we can like reclaim and repurpose our monsters and make
Yeah.
and stuff.
This guy over here with the big old shoulder pads and like the top hat, yeah, he's ours. You can't have him. Yeah, he crawls on the walls and he like gets in your face and stuff when you try to hide under the blankets, but he's one of us, so
Yeah.
back off.
He's just a little guy.
He's just a little guy, a little tall guy, a little tall scary guy. Okay. But let's see. So next up, we got the last monster on our list, which comes to us from Dan Drambles, who is also a video essayist. He does movie reviews. Just got done doing Wholesome Halloween for the last time. And the monster.
Video essayist.
I know. Who would have thought? Another video essayist from the UK on top of that.
Oh my god.
But the monster name that he gave to me to pass along to you is the Shuckling Gaunt.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
The Shuckling Gaunt.
The Shuckling Gaunt.
Well, that's a great name. Well done.
Yeah. Indeed.
I mean, I'm thinking shuckling like corn. Is that right? Like,
I think it's called shucking, right? But yeah, but shuckling, yeah, why not? You know,
it's not just, like chuckling, like, is it? Like laughing, no. Or is it?
I don't think it's. I don't know if it's a word. I think they just made it up.
Okay, excellent.
At least that's what I'm operating under.
It's got to be a corn monster. I'm sorry, that's all. That's the first thing I thought of. So we have to go with that.
Absolutely. He's got ears all over the place.
I like the idea of like, I mean, it's also just such a horror cliche, but I do like the idea of like a scarecrowy type of like creature.
I mean, I think that scarecrows are like can be pretty intimidating. You know, they're like the only thing standing out in a field. You know, it's really outstanding in its field, if you will. There's gonna be a rim shot there. But yeah, I think those can be effective means of like horror and stuff like that. Now, adding a corn monster with a scarecrow is an interesting prospect, though. So, do we think that like maybe this came about when like maybe it's kind of like a lot of those tropes with scarecrows where like the farmer like put it up in its field and stuff, but he was like, I don't have enough money for all this hay. I got to use that for feeding the cows, so I'm just gonna stuff it full of all this corn that I'm not using. I don't know how farming works, so I assume that you just have a bunch of corn, but no hay is totally a feasible thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's definitely more likely. So I grew up on a farm, and it's definitely more likely you will have surplus of hay than that you will have surplus of corn. But I do like the idea that he made a scarecrow out of corn, even if that's not necessarily the most practical thing. Or, you know, maybe he made the scarecrow out of the husks of corn.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also... I'm trying to think. There's definitely other places I could take the corn thing. I I like the idea of like a kind of because it's Shuckling Gaunt, which also makes me think of like a ghost type of thing, and it
Right.
makes me think of like um maybe there's some sort of like creature that goes around reaping the harvests of corn. Like it could, like, let's say there's a community, a farming community that relies extremely heavily on corn, and it just goes around and like poisons all the corn or just like takes it all, it just
Mhm.
disappears. Like the harvest is about to happen, the farmers go down, and all of the, like when you shuck the corn, which is actually kind of perfect that I am here for this because I used to shuck the corn all the time on the
Mhm.
farm. We would harvest the corn and we would shuck it, and you're shucking the corn. If I'm remembering all this, it's been a while since I lived on the farm, but you're literally just taking the skin off of the corn. And so maybe like you go down to collect the corn and it's all just empty. Like um
Oh.
it's taken the corn out of all of the different kind of like shucks. It's just all gone. And maybe this community is like going to starve as a result of that. And maybe it just has lots of kind of generally supernatural sort of, this is very cosmic horror, this kind of like um it's like this supernatural kind of like force that's like wreaking havoc, and the farmers don't know what it is, but maybe it's also sending locusts to like devour the corn, and
Ooh.
just like kind of the plagues, like the very biblical, like mythological, um and essentially what it is a phantom, and maybe sometimes it does inhabit scarecrows and other kind of like creature crows maybe in the field. It's sort of like this, yeah, and then maybe it moves on from corn, and sometimes it's like murders people as well.
Yeah, maybe it's a thing where like it requires like corn to power itself up, and
Yeah.
then like as it consumes more corn or like gathers more corn, I don't know, maybe it's like the ghost of the guy who used to own the farm who was brutally murdered by the guy who owns the farm now. Um
I
and like
like the idea. Sorry,
no,
no,
go ahead.
finish your thought.
Oh,
Okay.
so he's stealing all the corn,
Yeah.
and like tossing it down into like where he's buried, like in the field or
Yeah.
something like that. And the more corn that he gets, like the more powerful he becomes, the more he can like possess things.
Mm.
So he possesses like the
Mm-hmm.
crows that bring him the corn. He possesses the scarecrow standing out in its field. And he goes and he gets revenge on like the town for not solving his murder or something to that effect.
Yes. I love the idea of it being the kind of like phantom of someone who was murdered by the town. I'm thinking maybe like what if there was someone who was like starved to death by the town, like he was like all he wanted was a little bit of corn to eat. Maybe it was someone who, like, let's say was homeless, or and like maybe they stole some corn, and the town policeman was like, the sheriff or whatever was like, for stealing that corn you're sentenced to death, or something really dramatic, when he was just trying to eat and survive. So now he's like, none of you will eat, like I'm taking all the corn. and
Yeah.
then and then he's, yeah, like you say, feeding off of that corn now and becoming more and more powerful. um
That's a
I
way
like that a
cooler
lot.
backstory. Yeah, yeah.
Super
Um
cool.
yeah, I just because, I don't know if folks here know, but like the police, they don't normally go and murder people just all willy-nilly
Never.
for stealing stuff. They don't do that here. So it's very like nonsensical, just like outside of, in fiction.
Totally
Um
fantasy.
it would never happen and never cause anything like this to happen.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I like the idea of it being like a revenge ghost or a vengeful
Yeah.
like spirit that just, I don't know. Would this be like a one-time dealie? Do we think it's like a one of those like things from like It, where it's like once every 27 years this guy
Mm.
comes back and it goes on a murderous rampage? Or maybe it's like
That's a
more
good
frequent,
question.
like Like maybe it's like every year he comes back like around the harvest and like kills one person, maybe even related to that sheriff.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I think that would work, but only if he like maybe didn't hit all the farms. Because if he was just hitting all the farms, then like the people would just move to a different town, you know.
That's
But I
true.
like that. I like the thought of him targeting people close to the sheriff, like year in and year out. He kind of like fucks up some of the farms, and then kind of like there'll always be one person who dies, and then maybe the town people will wonder like, ooh, who's it gonna be this year, and kind of be a bit terrified, but not enough to like totally abandon it. You know, it's just like that classic thing in horror films where they're like, if it was a little bit worse, they'd probably leave, but they're like, this is my home, I'm gonna stay, but I'm scared, and then you're like, you should have left.
Yeah. I can just buy a shotgun. Oh no, it's impaled me with the shotgun.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. What do we think this guy looks like? Because we've established that it is like, it likes corn and it can possess
Right.
like different things, but like if it's not possessing scarecrows or crows, do we think that it has a specific look, I guess?
Yeah, that's a very, very, very good question. I can think of, I have two kind of vague concepts. I think maybe like, that's tricky because like when you think of ghosts, you do just tend to think of like someone who looks just like how they used to look before they die, but that doesn't really give
Yeah.
me very like monster vibes. I think
Yeah.
like I do like the idea of it maybe kind of like sometimes like being like a humanoid form of locusts, because that's a very like field plague, corn plague thing.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of it maybe like literally physically taking the form of corn husks, but not in like a kind of cartoony way, in like, you know, like a monstrous like plant way, like it's like just like this creepy conglomeration of corn husks that like it looks a little bit human but like not quite, you know.
Yeah. I was just thinking like it's like one of those like cheesy 80s horror movies where like you go past this one like stalk of corn and you're like, huh, that's kind of weird. That looks like a guy's face.
Yeah,
Oh.
100%. I think exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
um
sure that's definitely happened before too.
what Absolutely. Also,
Yeah.
like cornfields are such creepy places sometimes. Like, yeah. So I think that this is a great place for a horror monster to stalk out. There was this have you seen Love, Death and Robots? Another reference
I've
point.
never even heard of that one.
Okay. It's a wonderful cosmic horror Netflix TV show, and it's a collection of like, they're not all cosmic horror, but mostly cosmic horror, kind of like, you should definitely watch this more than anything else I've recommended today, because some of them are very like random and very silly, but a lot of them center around a monster. Like that's kind of a reoccurring theme, is that there's a monster who often has some like subtle kind of human qualities to it, and they're very short, like 20 minutes, and you meet the monster and you figure out their deal. um I love it. It's one of my favorite shows. But yeah, anyway, there's one episode, it's not my favorite, but there's one episode that takes place in a cornfield, and there's like loads of kind of like monsters in the cornfield, and that was another thing I was sort of thinking of with this.
Nice. No, I'm definitely I'm gonna have to find a way to see that, because that sounds like if it's like a little 20-minute like thing about like different monsters, that's very much up my alley. I don't know if you know this
Yeah.
or not. I have a podcast about monsters.
Oh, do you? Wow, that's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
interesting.
I know, a white guy with a podcast, who would have known. I like this. We've got a backstory. We got a thing that he looks like. I'm thinking. I just wanted to add on to like the appearance thing, since it is like the Shuckling Gaunt. I'm thinking like maybe he's also like he maybe looks famished, and then like
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of picturing like a knockoff of Candyman. Also, when he like opens his like coat or something like that, there's like just corn, just like all in his like chest, and there's like locusts crawling all over him and stuff like that. Um,
Ooh.
but
I
that
don't
might
know
be a little bit
Candyman, but I really like that.
Oh, you should check out Candyman. It's very good, except instead of locusts, it's bees. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it's very. It might be treading a little bit too close to that IP, so I don't know 100%. But I kind of like that idea personally. So
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, he was starved to death by this society who didn't care for him. So yeah, very gaunt, very yeah, absolutely. I think
yeah,
that's a great idea.
and he's
Um,
morally ambiguous, which is what we love in our monsters.
absolutely.
Is there anything else we need to add to the Shuckling Gaunt?
I'm pretty happy with the Shuckling Gaunt.
Yeah,
I
me
think he's
too.
pretty good.
All right, very awesome, very cool, very nice, very evil. Yes,
Indeed.
thank you so much for being here. It was a
Thank you for
pleasure.
having me.
Yeah,
This has been
absolutely.
great.
I've had a lot of fun. And
Likewise.
we are going to talk about this Desperate Housewives thing off air, but in the meantime, listeners, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye. This is a
Thanks
point,
for
not a
coming.
wave. There we go.
I hope you
Bye.
like them monsters.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening to our first episode of Just a Little Guy in just about 4 months. Again, really appreciate the patience with me being away for so long. Please, if you would like to support Marceline and all of her projects, head on over to her website, mbirkholz.com. That's M as in Marceline Birkholz, BIRKHOLZ.com. You can check out all of the stuff that she's got going on right there. Also, for sure, check out all of her work on YouTube, which is at youtube.com/@MQBirkholz. Same spelling, just throw a Q in between the M and Birkholz. All right. So be sure to go check her out. You can find all of her social medias on there as well. And obviously, if you're looking like in the description of the episode, it'll be there as well. So if you don't feel like doing all that, if you don't want to do all the heavy typing, just go and take a look down the description. And we'll provide you links to all of her projects right down there. Yeah. Anyway, thank you again so much for listening. And special thanks go out once again to all of our patrons who really just are incredible, have stuck by us through this entire ordeal. Special thanks go out to Taru Tikkanen, D. Solari, and of course Lunchbox. Thank you all once again so much for your continued support, and look forward to more content coming soon. We've got another episode coming right up featuring an artist known as Tucker Woolley, and then there's another one coming up featuring another friend of ours. So definitely stay tuned. If you'd like to support the Patreon and get your name read out, it's over at patreon.com/justalittleguy. That's Lil as in, I don't know, Lil. It's Lil. That's the thing. Lil. Just a little guy. If you found the podcast, you can find the Patreon. I'll link it in the description too for you, just so you don't gotta do more typing. All right. Thanks everybody. Have a great day. Bye.